Yeah, it was kind of cool to eliminate the St. Louis Cardinals from playoff contention, although they were probably eliminated back in May. Chuck Freeman, Locked On Brewers. We'll talk about the Brewers' victory. And this is like one of the most amazing teams in Brewer history. I'll tell you why. And we'll talk about the stadium issue a little bit as well. All that and more coming up next here on Locked On Brewers.
You are Locked On Brewers, your daily Milwaukee Brewers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody. Good to have you along here on a Tuesday night, Wednesday morning. Appreciate everybody joining me here on Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. Thank you, everybody, for downloading us, being an everydayer. Google, Spotify, Apple is where a majority of our listeners come from, the Apple downloads. But we're everywhere you download a podcast, because we are the number one Brewer podcast on the internet because of you great fans out there. And, of course, our growing YouTube audience. Follow me along YouTube. Go to YouTube, search Locked On Brewers, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell, and it'll alert you every time we drop an episode. And, of course, follow me on Twitter as well. I read all your comments. Sometimes I read some of these on the air. I'm going to get to a couple of them tonight as well. Chuck Freeman, Freimund. Yeah, the Brewers handled these guys 7-3, the Cardinals. And this was a game where, Trevor Megill gave those. I hate to start on a negative note here, but Trevor Megill gave those 2 runs of the first inning. And I know the Brewers got a cushion to play with. As of this taping, they have a 6-game lead the magic number is down to 6. It was a 6-game lead, 6.5 with the win. The Cubs are still playing the Pirates as we're talking here. But Trevor Megill started this game, gave 2 runs right away in the first inning, and I'm like, oh boy. He pitched fine his first time he did this. There's really some of these relievers they put into the game. I'm like, I'm sitting at the edge of my seat. And he's like one of them. I think he's got a great fastball, some good stuff there. But do I want him pitching other than it's a blowout? That's the only way I want that guy in a postseason game, a blowout either way. So the Brewers bounce back at Colin Ray, who's been fantastic. When I say fantastic, I'm not talking Brandon Woodruff, Corbin Burns fantastic. I'm talking about fantastic because he's exceeded our expectations level and doing fine. 14-9. I know some of you guys don't like when I say that about Colin Ray, and I'm not short selling him, but he just wasn't the guy we counted on this year. And he's been terrific in the role he's been thrust in. He's been going back and forth to Nashville a few times. Look at that. I mean, back and forth to Nashville. How many times has he done that this year? And then he gets up here and he throws like he's a 10-year veteran on the team. So, his 4+ innings, 4 2/3 tonight was great. Really settled things down after Megill gave up those 2 runs in the first inning. And you're thinking, oh, boy, And I was telling you after Monday night's game, they lost 1-0, but I wasn't too worried about it. Well, when they got down 2-0, I got a little edgy there because you don't want to turn a 2-game losing skid into a 7-game skid, and you let those clowns, the Cubs, back into this thing. So, he settled things down. Contreras home run, his 17th of the year. Will Contreras continues to be Mr. Clutch, Mr. Big Moment, a guy you can count on this team offensively. Earlier this season, he was not a guy you would think you'd put in the 2-hole. I mean, like first week or two. When the season started, actually, he didn't think Will Contreras to be a number 2 guy, but he put him in the 2-hole, and that's a perfect spot for him because that's how good he is. And then the Brewers, 5 of their first 7 hits were doubles, and the Brewers took control. The old Milwaukee Brewers, the May and June and part of July into August, Milwaukee Brewers, they would have got down 2-0 in the first inning, and they would have called it a night. Not these Brewers. These Brewers are not your Rowdy Tellez Brewers. These are a different brand of Milwaukee Brewers and fought and eliminated St. Louis from the postseason. One other guy, by the way, Chafin. I don't want to see Chafin in relief. I don't care if it's a 4-run lead. He gave two hits there. They had to get Devin Williams up. I don't care. Unless it's a 16-0 game, should Chafin ever pitch in a game. Hey, stranger thing is, I didn't think that lead was a safe 4-run lead at St. Louis. And they got those two runners on, and the crowd began to get into it again. So, no, I don't like Chafin pitching with anything less than a double-digit lead. That's just how I feel about that. But it was kind of cool to see St. Louis eliminated. Brewers went down there in 2018 and won the division title. And here in 2023, they did it to the Cardinals by finishing them off and moving within 6 games. I should say the magic number of 6 games. Cool win and a nice bounce back. And Craig Counsell gets his 700th win. Will he get to 800 in a Brewers uniform? That's the big question. Will he get to 800? That's a question we'll know probably a week or two or longer after the postseason, whenever that is, coming to an end for the Brewers. But the Brewers got their 85th win. And this is the most incredible team, I think, in Brewer history. Not the best team. When I say the most amazing team, I don't mean the best team in Brewer history. But a team that just, how are they winning? How are they 18, 20 games over the 500 mark when you look at how poorly offensively they are? And you look at the lineup and you look who they're running out there, it's like, wow, this is a first-place team. This is the 3 seed in the National League, but they keep winning. They just keep winning. They pulled away from when they were a handful of games over the 500 mark. They got to 10 over in July and then just kept on chugging away. And this is why Craig Counsell is manager of the year. And you could have made a case all those other years. I'm not big on postseasons awards, to be honest with you, because, like I said, in our state, we've won our share of postseason MVPs and awards like that, coach of the years, and then usually fall short in the championship round. Save the Milwaukee Bucks in 2021. We usually flop out miserably, and I'm talking about all our professional sports teams. But yeah, Counsell would be a nice thing, but if he won manager of the year, but if he doesn't win it, which he should win it, I'm not going to lose any sleep over it at all. But if you think about it, he's done the most incredible job in baseball. Taking this team and getting to 85 wins at this point with a week and a half left in the season. Show me a better candidate than Craig Counsell. And I know he gets on your case. He gets on your nerves, some of you guys out there. And there's some things I don't like that he does, but say that about every coach and manager and pro sports, college level. That's just the way it is. But I want him back big time next year. All right, we come back. We'll talk about Jackson Chourio making his debut down at Nashville. Where this team really compares to other teams. Is it a championship level team? We'll talk about that coming up next here on Locked On Brewers. The show is brought to you in part by Jase Medical. Brought to you by Jase Medical. Empower yourself when you purchase a Jase case, providing you with a personal supply of 5 antibiotics that treat 50-plus infections. Get yours today at jasemedical.com. That's JASE medical.com. Chuck Freeman, Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you, everybody, for downloading the episode. As always, we got plenty to talk to, but I want to take this time to say, you downloading the episode every day on the various apps, Apple, Google, Spotify, the major podcast downloads, wherever you get it. Wherever you get it, I appreciate it 1,000%. And, of course, follow me on YouTube, Locked On Brewers. We're getting primed for the postseason. Postseason baseball is coming to us, and we are going to be here for you covering the postseason throughout and the offseason, too. We're not going away. So we'll be keeping you company with Brewer news, even in the offseason. But thank you very much for following me on Twitter as well and putting your comments on Locked On Brewers on the YouTube. There's a bunch of comments. I read them all every day. I tell you that I do. I read them all every day because I really love hearing what you Brewer fans got to say about the team, because we're all fans at the end of the day. All right, this show is brought to you in part by the good folks over at Jase Medical. Jase Medical, a new sponsor here on Locked On Brewers. Modern medical care and treatment are important, but our global supply chains are fragile right now. Things like pandemics, natural disasters, foreign travel may cut you off from the treatment you need. Jase Medical is your solution. Just fill out their online form, and one of Jase Medical's board-certified physicians will review it and determine what medications are safe and appropriate for you. Jase will send out your prescriptions to the partner pharmacies. Your order will be mailed directly to your home. You can also send your physician a message for answers anytime. They'll answer all your questions. Everyone should be empowered to care for themselves and their loved ones during the unexpected. That's why Jase Medical offers the Jase case. Save more than $360 by getting life-saving antibiotics with Jase Medical, plus an additional $20 off by using my promo code LOCKEDON at checkout at jasemedical.com. JASE medical.com. All right, everybody, we're coming right back, and we'll talk about Chourio, when Yelich might return. How does this team compare to other Brewers teams? And we'll get into the stadium issue a little bit as well. Chuck Freeman, Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. Welcome back to Locked On Brewers. Good to have you along here on a late Tuesday night, early Wednesday morning. Got quick 9 holes in before the Brewer game. It's long pants weather, although it's going to be some nice weather in Wisconsin this coming week. So Jackson Chourio doubled to right field. The video's all over Twitter. Go to it when you're done with this video if you want to see it. Had a little blue dash shot to right field that dropped in. And he's playing out the final week of the season at Nashville. And that was good to see. Good to see him get on the board and get an extra base hit in his first game with Nashville. Christian Yelich worked out a little bit with the team today. Of course, he's had that sore back. They're trying to avoid an injured reserve list with him, an injured list with him. So hopefully he'll be back soon. We'll know more here in the next couple of days. But he tried out his back today a little bit during batting practice and then in the outfield, and we'll see how that responds. But the Brewers really would love to avoid the injury list for him. Where does this team rank among past postseason teams? And this team is going into the postseason. To me, 2018, the 1982 team will always be the best. And some of you have never even around by then. I get that. That's 41 years ago. But the 82 team will always be the best. And, of course, they had 5 Hall of Famers and couldn't win a World Series, losing to the Cardinals. And this is when the Brewers were in the American League. Some of you still ask, and I get it, how are the Brewers playing the Cardinals in the World Series? Well, the Brewers used to be in the American League until Selig thought it was best to move them in the National League. We'll talk about that some other time. But I think the second best team, the 2018 Brewers, the 87 Brewers, I thought were World Series caliber. They didn't even get to the postseason. Probably would have made it under today's postseason format, but 2 teams from each league made it in 87. And the Brewers, they got off to that 20-3 start and then fell apart. Then we're like a game over 500 by Memorial Day, which was unbelievable, their collapse. I think it was 13 wins, and then they lost 12 in May. So the 87, the 2018 team, the 82 team, I thought they're best teams. This team, it's not better than the 2021 team, not better than the 2019 team, not better. This is probably their worst playoff team, I would say. Yes, so. 2018, better offense, although that team died of the postseason because they're hitting. 2019, I thought that team was playing so good in September. They lost on a couple of flukes, but they lost at Washington. We're not going to go down that road again. But this Brewer team, if they make it in, probably their worst postseason team in their team history. 07 too. This would be worse than 07. Now, pitching wise, probably their best team. This pitching wise, if the 07 team would have stayed, I'm sorry, 07, I meant 08. 07 team probably should have made it to the postseason too. They got off to that great start and didn't sustain it. The 08 team, their pitching was pretty good. If Sheets, would have stayed healthy, but with CC there, and you had some real good pitching there. You did, yeah. But I think this team's pitching is better, and the numbers will show that. You had Burns and Woodruff, two legit bona fide number one starters, and Freddie pitching like a number one, and Miley. The pitching on this team is probably maybe the best pitching staff of all the postseason teams. Probably the best pitching staff in Brewer history. Starting pitchers, 1 through 3, and if you want to include Miley, 4. 1 through 4. I have anybody challenge me on that. But can this team make a run in the postseason, or are they going to flame out? That remains to be seen. I think they're going to win this wild card series, and I think they'll give Los Angeles a run. I'm not putting, well, you know what? We shouldn't even be going that far ahead. But I think this team has got the capability of making a run in the postseason, a legit two. June and July, I would have said no, but at times they can get it together offensively. Now, if they go into that offensive freeze, which they've done in the postseason, then that'll be their demise. We all know that. But I think this team is legit. Not as legit as some of those other teams. I felt better about 2018 and 2019 and 2021. Certainly I did. And 2008. But maybe this will be the team that surprises us and breaks the door down. Got a long way to go in that postseason. All right. When we return, we'll talk about this Brewer Stadium issue real briefly. We talked a little bit about it yesterday. We'll get to some of that coming up next here on Locked On Brewers. Locked On Brewers brought to you by Sleeper. A great way to play fantasy baseball. Baseball's never been more exciting with the stars like Acuna and Betts. Pick more or less on stats from these stars and others. Anybody you want. Home runs, hits, strikeouts, triples, doubles. They have all the numbers, all the stats. This is the best site I've seen, the Sleeper, for all the stats for fantasy baseball. And you can get about 100 times your payout on Sleeper. Get your picks right, and you can win big. Use the promo code LOCKEDON. You'll get a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms for use of details. Go to my YouTube page. You see that Sleeper crawl right at the bottom of the page there. Sleeper.com promo. Sleeper.com /promo /LOCKEDON. And you're going to find everything you need to know about Sleeper and the terms of use. But check it out. The MLB playoffs are coming up, and you could win big time money. If you know your fantasy, up to 8 times. You could parlay up to 8 different players on this and really make a bonanza. You can use the promo code LOCKEDON. You got a $100 match with that first deposit with the folks over at Sleeper. Chuck Freeman here on Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. The Brewers take on the Cardinals in Game 3 of the series, 6:45. The airtime, you get it on Sirius XM, the SXM app, in the Central Time Zone at 6:45. You get all 162 of Brewers Baseball on Sirius XM and the SXM app. Chuck Freeman here. I cover the Brewers on a regular basis for AP Radio, and but a longtime sports talk show host and sportscaster in the state of Wisconsin. Appreciate you all joining me here on Locked On Brewers and downloading us on YouTube on Locked On Brewers on YouTube. Hit the subscribe button. We're trying to push to over 2,000 subscriptions. We're getting there. We're only a handful away. Want to keep busting those doors down. 2,000 subscriptions. I would love to see it. And we can only do it without you. All right, we'll come back and we'll talk about the stadium issue and look ahead to Wednesday's matchup. Chuck Freeman, Locked On Brewers, coming right back after this. Welcome back to Locked On Brewers. Chuck Freeman, your host here. All right, let's touch on the pitcher. It's going to be Adrian Houser getting the start, and Houser's been very good. Very good, whether he's been the number 4 starter or the 5 starter. Houser has been good. making one of his few remaining starts before he gets put to the bullpen. I don't think they told him the news yet, but I'm sure that's coming down very shortly from Craig Counsell. I mean, there's no way you're going to start, no disrespect to the guy, but you're not going to start him in a postseason game unless there was an injury or two. But he gets to start Thursday, and the game will be on Sirius XM, the SXM app, search Brewers. The Tampa Bay Rays are getting a stadium in 2028. Now, the Rays, they play indoors, and that's always been the excuse for the Rays fans for staying away. They have the worst attendance in baseball. They've had some real good teams like this year. So they think that building a new stadium and putting all these nice amenities around the ballpark is going to help attendance. Now, I'll tell you this. The reason why I bring them up, the Brewers, public financing will be about $600 million, $500 to $600 million. To build a new stadium for the Rays, $600 million as well. So the Rays are getting a new stadium, public financing for $600 million, about what Wisconsin will probably have to kick in if this bill goes through. There's going to be some workings on the deal, but the Rays are getting a new stadium and all, everything around it. I still say, hey, let's build around AmFam Field. Let's get this state. I'm not really worried. I told Bill Michaels today on his show when I was on there. I'm on there Tuesdays at 12:35 on the State Network on the Bill Michaels show. I said he agreed with me. He's not worried about it. I'm not worried about it. This is going to go through. The fact that wheels are in motion right now, and this is going to be a political thing, as we know, Republicans versus Democrats, depending on what side you are on. There's going to be a fight for this. There's no doubt about it. But it was just interesting that the Rays, and they can do what they want. I don't think Tampa's really done enough to keep their team, to be honest with you. They had contenders, and I don't care if that's Tampa and they play in a dome stadium down there. You got a team that's in first place and going to World Series and playoffs. You should be getting more than 12,000 fans to your game. Here in Milwaukee, in the state of Wisconsin, our teams we've been to one World Series, and we're drawing 35,000 on a Saturday night. That's why the best fans in the world are Brewer fans. But it's funny how the public financing of both proposals are for the $600 million, kind of the same with the Rays and the Brewers. All right. Coming up tomorrow on the show, we'll talk about the Brewers and Cardinals in Game 3 of the series. Hopefully the Brewers will move a step closer to the wild card, the clinching the division. Well, we're not even thinking the wild card. They're going to get a wild card spot. They're going to have to play in that wild card round because they're the third best team of the three division winners. But they're going to win the NL Central. There's no doubt about it. And push forward, keep pushing forward. Another day rips off the calendar, and the Brewers move a step closer. The magic number 6 as of this recording, because the Cubs were playing a late one. Got a little late start with the Pirates down at Wrigley today. All right, that's going to do it. Thank you all my fans out there for following me along every day. Chuck Freeman, FREIMUND. Follow me along on YouTube. Go to Locked On Brewers on YouTube. And, of course, the various downloads, Google, Spotify, Apple, to get the audio version of this show. We'll be back after the game tomorrow night. Until then, Chuck Freeman, Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. Good night, everybody.